Today, Riot finally started revealing what some of the cards are going to be for the first expansion of Legends of Runeterra, and they did so in a pretty cool way. They revealed Quinn through a pretty cool video that kind of shows off not only Quinn, but an upcoming keyword, and that keyword is Scout. So for this video, I'm going to go through all of the cards that were revealed, talk about the new Scout mechanic, and then we'll end on some speculation, because it's always fun to do around reveal season about whether or not this is going to be good. And spoiler alert, I'm usually really conservative with my estimates because I think it's impossible to accurately gauge whether something is good until you see the full picture. But again, it's fun to do, so we're going to do it at the end of the video. Now, right out of the gate, I'm sure you want to know about Quinn if you have not seen the reveal already. So here is Quinn. This is level 1 of Quinn, and Quinn is a 5-cost 3/4. But when she is summoned, so that's anytime she enters play, not just played from hand, you also summon Valor. Now, we'll talk about the rest of Quinn in a minute, but I'm sure you want to know what Valor is. So this is Valor. Valor is a 2-cost 2/1 that has Challenger and Scout. So you're now probably wondering what Scout is. We're going to go back to that level 1 of Quinn. Quinn also has Scout as well. Scout is a new keyword, and it is described this way by the video. The first time only Scout units attack each round, you ready your attack. Now, there's a lot going on there because at first glance it's going to seem like, well, it's just a rally clone, but it's kind of not. And you're also probably going to think that that sounds really powerful, and it certainly is. It's a powerful ability, but it's not as blanketly powerful as you might think. And I'll talk about why in just a moment, but I want to finish talking about Quinn because we haven't seen all of her yet. So again, level 1 Quinn here, 3/4 for 5. When she's summoned, you summon Valor, and she has Scout. Her level up condition is she has to see you attack 4 times. So you have to play her, and she has to survive 4 combat rounds. That is actually pretty difficult, even if you're counting the new Scout mechanic. That means that she has to come down, survive, you know, the Scout round, if you will. That's what I'm going to start calling that combat. Like the Scout combat, the regular combat, then come back around to you and survive the Scout combat and the regular combat again. Now, you can trick this with cards like Relentless Pursuit, obviously, and things of the like, but I have a feeling that she's going to be pretty difficult to level if you are actively putting her in combat. Now, it is worth noting she only has to see the combat rounds. She does not have to be in combat herself. So that is another way you can potentially protect her to try to get her to her leveled up form. And we're going to showcase what that is now. So her leveled up form is a 4/5 with Scout, and on attack, she summons a Valor challenging the strongest enemy unit. Now, this is interesting because this happens every time you attack. It's like Elise and her spiders. So you can get more than one Valor. You can end up with 3 or 4 Valors if they somehow survive the combat. But really, this is about taking their strongest blocker and pulling it away from your strongest units. It's a really neat ability, and I don't know if it's going to be worth the effort to level Quinn. We will see. It certainly is powerful. We know through Elise that taking small units and challenging big potential blockers to keep your main units alive is very important. And on Quinn here, it's especially important because it's making a new one that's challenging every round, so she kind of protects herself from whatever the biggest blocker would be. So it's a pretty powerful effect. Now, the last piece, if you will, of Quinn is they did show off the card Blinding Assault, and we're led to assume that this is what Quinn becomes if you already have a Quinn in play. So every champion has a spell that is kind of tied to them. So if you have a champion on the board and you have additional copies of said champion in your hand, they turn into this. And Blinding Assault is a 2-cost slow spell that just says summon Valor. And I actually really like the spell. I think that this might see play even in non-Quinn decks because we have already seen Fleet Feather Tracker be incredibly important, incredibly powerful. And this is not obviously a 1-drop, but because you can also use spell mana to play this, it's right in line with that in terms of power level. And if you're playing a defensive deck or a controlling deck and you're just trying to stall the early game, even being able to open with like a turn 1 Fleet Feather into a turn 2 Blinding means that you can dictate early trades very well. So I do think this card is very interesting, and this is again her associated champion spell. So before I show off the other cards they revealed, I want to talk about Scout some more. So before I kind of hinted that it might not be as powerful as you think, and it's in the wording. So the first thing I want to highlight is it says the first time only Scout units attack each round. So this means you have to be able to attack before you can even get the benefit of the Scout ability. So on your opponent's turn, for example, you have to play some sort of rally effect to also get the Scout effect. You don't just inherently get it. And so this is one of the ways that this deviates from rally. If you think about Garen, for example, once you level up Garen, he rallies at the start of every round, so you can attack on your turn, but you can also attack on your opponent's turn because rally gives you an attack token. These Scout units do not grant you an attack token. They ready your attack after they have attacked. So you have to have an existing token to get this started. So it's very powerful on your turn, but on your opponent's turn, you're going to have to play something like a Relentless Pursuit. Now, I imagine in Scout decks, Relentless Pursuit is probably going to be some kind of staple because it's just a great way to continue getting benefits from these cards. But again, it is worth noting that it's not just, you know, hey, you get an extra attack every round with all of your Scouts. Now, the other thing that I think is really interesting about Scouts is that you don't have to take the Scout attack round. These create really interesting decisions for you to make as an attacker when you own both Scout units and non-Scout units. I think the most interesting decisions, and I like this design, I think it comes from the mix, right? Imagine you've got a board state where you have like 2 Scout units and 2 non-Scout units. And now you have to decide, is it worth it to attack with just the Scout first? Because maybe, you know, maybe you have Valor, right? And you really want Valor to also challenge one of their big blockers so that you can get your Boom Crew rookie through and not get blocked. But you can't do that if you're only taking advantage of the Scout units first, right? So Scout really only becomes a binary decision, if you will, when you have the benefit of all Scouts, right? I'm trying to think about the right way to word this. So if you have all Scouts, then obviously you can attack with all Scouts, and then if you want, you can hold some back and then attack again. That's what I mean by binary, right? Because your decisions are this, right? If you have, let's say, 4 Scout units, your decisions are attack with everything or attack with part of it, and then you can get a second attack, right? Those are your 2 decisions. Technically, not attacking is a third decision, but we're not going to discuss that. So the only decision you make is, what units you want to attack with each combat round. But the minute you have a mix, you have to decide, do I want to take the Scout-only attack? Is that worth it? If I do take the Scout-only attack, do I attack with all my Scout units? Do I not? Then with the other option, it's like, okay, if I don't attack with just the Scout units, then how does that benefit me, right? So cards like Valor, I just think are really interesting. My mind is racing. I know that this is going to look like I'm struggling mentally. I'm probably looking like I'm Joe Biden at this point, but it's just because I'm so excited for this like keyword mechanic and what it means for me, because I love proactive decks. If you follow me from the Elder Scrolls Legends, you know that I liked playing aggressive decks because I think that aggro sometimes gets unfairly blamed as brainless because you just attack every turn. In Magic, there's the old phrase, math is for blockers, right? Like turn them all sideways, let your opponent figure out what to do. But the reality is, in a lot of games, aggressive decks require a decent amount of decision making, and this idea of introducing Scout, where sometimes you attack with some units to get an extra attack, sometimes you don't. I don't know. I'm just really excited about it. So my mind is still racing. The cards were like just revealed as I filmed this, so I haven't even had time to kind of marinate on it or properly digest this information. This is almost as close to a real reaction video as you'll ever get from me. A lot of times when stuff is revealed, I take some time to reflect, but I was just really excited, so I apologize. I'm a bit more mumbly than usual. You probably don't care about that, though. You probably care about what are the other cards that were shown off, because they did show off 3 other scout cards, technically 4 other cards total. So let's talk about them. First is Great Horn Companion. This is a big moose. It's not the Tessel moose, but it's a big moose. This is a 5-cost 4/5 for scout. And so you kind of already see what the design philosophy is here. 4/5 for 5 is a kind of lackluster stat line, right? You can get some really powerful units at 5 mana. This is more expensive than the Elnuk that is the Chillwind Yeti, and even that wasn't seeing play. Now, Scout means that you can potentially get a second attack with it, but again, you have to attack with only Scout units to make that pay off. I will say this about this card specifically. This card is getting my vote for being the most mispronounced card in the set, because I think you're gonna see a lot of people who just kind of glance at this and say Great Thorn Companion, but it, in my opinion, is probably Great Horn, because this is a moose with some pretty great horns. Yeah, I know they're antlers, but it's not Great Thorn. It could be like Gray Thorn, but then that's probably the wrong gray. I just think that this is going to get mispronounced a lot. And I won't judge anybody who mispronounces it, because it's pretty easy to do, but I think that's what's going to happen. So next up, we have Green Fang Warden. And this is a really interesting card, and it's another one that is a bit understated for the cost, but I think that this one has a lot of sneaky potential if we get more elite support. That's the big if for me. This is a 3-cost 2/2 with toughness and scout, but it is also an elite. So I find that to be very interesting as well. If we get more ways to interact with or buff elites, then this card could end up being really strong, because the toughness, I think toughness overall is a bit underrated at the moment, but there's just not many units that can take advantage of it. And so I'm always kind of keeping an eye out for that keyword, right? I think Radiant is maybe like the marquee unit to really take advantage of toughness, and sometimes you will get some other units with toughness randomly created from effects, but there are so many things in the game that deal exactly 1 damage, and being able to just negate them entirely, you know, Withering Wail, Static Shock, Vile Feast, I think is powerful. We just haven't had units that make it worth running them quite yet. So I'm keeping my eye on this card mostly to see if we end up getting more elite support. Now, the last card, speaking of 1 damage, the last card here is Grizzled Ranger. This is a 4/1, so that's where I am mentioning the 1 damage. This is a 4/1 scout for 4, but it has a last breath of summon a Loyal Badger Bear. Now, the Loyal Badger Bear is a 3-cost 4/4. It's just a vanilla 4/4. But I really like this card because it showcases kind of that drawback of, hey, you've got 1 health, but it does so in a really interesting way because you also still get a 4/4 out of it. So this is like a 4-cost 4/4 with upside because it's got the 4/1 scout, and the scout, this is one of those cards that I think by itself fits really well into a deck that's going to be mixed. I think you're going to see a lot of people just try to jam every scout keyword card into a deck and then play Relentless Pursuit and run with it. I just fully expect that. So this is what I mean when I say mixed. I mean decks that have a little bit of scout and a little bit of non-scout. This is a card that I think is perfect for those style decks because you can attack with Grizzled Ranger by itself, even if you have other non-scout units, and feel pretty good about it because you force them to respond. Either they take the 4 damage and not block it, or they block it, you probably trade, but then you also get a 4/4 on top of it, and you can still attack with that round as well because you only attacked with the Ranger, which was a scout. So that's like your scout attack, and then you get your regular attack, and the Badger Bear can be a part of it. I really like this card. Yes, 1 health does make it potentially destroyed by effects, but then you get the 4/4 out of it anyway, and you forced them to use the effect on the Ranger and maybe not a better target. So I think that this, and if I'm being honest, out of all the cards revealed, I think this one is my favorite. I think it's got the potential to be the most powerful or the most played. again, take that with a grain of salt because we don't know what the rest of the set looks like. So if we're talking about power level in a vacuum, I think Grizzled Ranger is very, very strong. We'll see play, again, barring whatever else the set reveals. I think Great Horn Companion is not very good. I think that's a 4/5 for 5. There's far more impactful things you want to do for 5 mana. So unless you're just trying to jam every unit that has the word Scout on it into a deck, I don't think that one will see much play. I think Green Fang Warden is the mystery because it depends on whether we get more elite support or not. I don't think that the 2/2 body, even with the double keywords, I don't think the 2/2 body for 3 is worth it. This is a card that you want to be playing in a proactive deck. It doesn't have great proactive stats by itself. Now, I could see something like this being great in some niche decks. Like, this is a pretty good candidate for something like Standalone. So if you're playing just some weird kind of cheese deck, you could bank your spell mana, and then on turn 3 you could drop this, and then use your spell mana on Standalone, and then swing twice that round with a 5/5 toughness, right? Because you get your scout attack and then your regular attack. So you could do some stuff like that, but I think that regardless, this card just needs support around it, whether it's more elite support or you're trying to run buffs, but it's got powerful keywords on it. And then Quinn, I think that Quinn is interesting. She looks understated at first glance because you look at her and you say, okay, I'm paying 5 for a 3/4. You have to remember the Valor though. So really this is 5 for a 5/5, pretty much like Garen territory. The difference though is Garen has regeneration. It's a more defensive kind of mid-rangey card. Quinn is a 5/5 meant to be proactive because both her and Valor have Scout. So you want to be attacking with them, and Valor with the Challenger hopefully means that Quinn still pushes 3 damage because Valor's going to soak up a blocker. So again, Quinn is, I think, going to see play. I think for sure people, as I said before, they'll jam every Scout card into a deck and try to run with it. But I think that Quinn will be the new aggressive Garen is the way I want to word this, right? So decks that were already running Lucian, right? Think of like Lucian, Garen, Demacia lists. I would rather personally run Quinn over Garen in a Lucian-based aggressive deck because not only do you get the extra body to potentially die and flip Lucian, but you get the Challenger to help pull away key blockers, and you just potentially push more damage. So you also get the Scout effect, and if you're already playing Lucian, you're probably playing Relentless Pursuit. So overall, I think that Quinn will kind of become the aggressive Garen. And anyway, that's my initial assessment. So this is our first reveal season, first expansion. There's a lot of firsts going on. I'm really excited, as you can probably tell, because I'm normally, I apologize, I'm normally much more like concentrated in my thoughts, and my review videos are usually more succinct, but this is, as I said before, almost like a reaction video, because at the time of filming this, these were just revealed and I was really, really excited. So I want to know what you think. Are you excited for these? Are you excited for the Scout mechanic? As I said before, for me, I think it's going to create really interesting decision trees, both for the proactive player, but also as a defender. Like when you're seeing your opponent with a mix of Scout and non-Scout cards, you then have to create the best possible outcome for you. And so what I mean by that is you have to decide on your end, are they more likely to attack with just Scouts, and do I need to accommodate that, or are they going to forego the Scout attack and go with the standard attack, and then what's my game plan for that as well? So again, for me, I just really think that the Scout keyword is neat. I also really enjoy that the Scout keyword kind of reflects scouting, right? Your Scouts go out and kind of do the recon first, so they attack first, and then you bring your army. So from a flavor standpoint, I just really like the design of the mechanic as well. I'm a big nerd for when flavor and function can tie together. I think Scout does that beautifully. If I did have one complaint right now about Scout, it's that Teemo is not a Scout. And I don't think, based on his power level, that they're going to retroactively give him Scout. But it makes me a little sad that the Yordle who follows the Scout's code is not a Scout. So I don't know, I feel kind of bad for Teemo, and I never thought I'd say that sentence out loud. So we're going to end there. Let me know what you think about the cards. If you made it this far, you listened to my ranting, thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway, I'm looking forward to the comments on this one, and I'm looking forward to reveals in the future, so hopefully I will catch you watching those videos as well.